Well, welcome. This is BolaniLe Patterson with another episode of Women Healing Globally. And today's episode, or my series, would be called The Elephant in the Room, episode 12. You can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Let me say that again. You can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Today's spotlight in the 9 dimensions is emotional wellness and spiritual wellness, featured by the 4 forces of truth, acknowledgement, grace, and forgiveness. So welcome back with another episode of Women Healing Globally podcast, where we explore healing from the inside out through the lens of the 9 dimensions of health and wellness. So come on and grab your cup of coffee or tea, or if you're on lunch break or just off of work, whenever you get some time for self-care, I would ask you to come and join me today. So this conversation today is a little uncomfortable. The conversations I have, or the content that I bring to awareness, hopefully for myself first and then all others, particularly women, is a little uncomfortable. But sometimes the conversations we avoid are the very ones that have the greatest power to heal us. So today, again, I'm going to talk about that elephant in the room. And whether we're talking about childhood trauma, broken relationships, betrayal, grief, or historical injustice, healing cannot begin where harm is denied. Again, let me repeat that one more again. Healing cannot begin where harm is denied. One of the most powerful experiences isn't simply what happened to us. It's when our pain is somehow dismissed or minimized or met with comments like, girl, just get over it. Or, girl, that was a long time ago. That was 10, 20 years ago. That was a month ago. That was a day ago. Why are you still talking about that? Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I might be still talking about it. And some of you might be still talking about it, or might be still grieving it, or still be thinking about it, or might still be traumatized by it. Pain doesn't disappear because someone else is uncomfortable talking about it, attempting to avoid it, or trying to suppress it. Healing begins when we're willing to acknowledge what is true for ourselves, even when it is uncomfortable. And each person's truth is often different, right? From the lens of the storyteller or the victim or the victimizer, right? But acknowledgement isn't about remaining trapped in the past. It's about telling the truth so that healing has somewhere to go and somewhere to begin in a healthy dynamic, right? Today's conversation was inspired by a discussion about historical trauma and ways people sometimes respond by saying, just get over it. Whether we're talking about slavery, discrimination, childhood trauma, abuse, betrayal, or personal loss, dismissing someone's pain doesn't make it disappear. It often deepens the wound because the experience itself has never been acknowledged. Do you know how powerful that is to just acknowledge someone else's hurt, someone else's trauma, so that they can feel seen? You know how powerful that is. To just be humble enough to say, hey, I see you, I'm listening, I'm present. I've experienced in my own life, from of course, my own childhood traumas and through foster care and relationships that left wounds, some past, some present, or recent, I'll say that. And as I'm healing, I'm still healing from today. But one thing for me that has worked or is working, that therapy has taught me something powerful. Some wounds no longer sting like they used to, right? Because I've went through the healing and the transformation with that. While yet others still leave a certain kind of ache, still some residue from that trauma or that hurt. And that's okay too, because as long as you're still working through that, healing through that, and whatever means that healthy outlets that you use, that's okay. But you have to have some healthy outlets, whether that it's journaling, whether that's through therapy, whether that's through exercise, whether that's through something. But you have to acknowledge it. You can't use these things as a scapegoat not to actually address what comes up for you, right? You can't dismiss how you felt about something. And neither is it considerate to dismiss someone else's experience or trauma or experience that they've had that they're still working through. And I also learned that acknowledgement isn't only for those who have been hurt. It is also for those who have actually caused the hurt. That's probably one of the bigger things, because a lot of times our ego, our pride, our perseverance our avoidance doesn't want to acknowledge if we've been the ones who caused the hurt, right? But one of the greatest acts of courage is asking ourselves, is there someone I need to apologize to? Is there something I need to course correct and make amends to? Just so that I can have a clear conscience and sleep good at night. Not be riddled with anxiety because I'm carrying all this stuff I've avoided for years, right? Both the trauma that I've received and maybe the trauma I've given to someone else. Is there someone's pain I've minimized? Is there a conversation that needs to be had that I'm avoiding because I'm uncomfortable about it? Or I'm letting my pride and ego get in the way? Is there something I need to acknowledge so that healing can begin for myself and to plant the seed in someone else's healing to begin? So within the 9 dimensions of health and wellness, today's conversation again highlights these 2 very areas within the 9 dimensions. Emotional wellness, managing emotions through awareness, acknowledgement, and a healthy expression. Also, healing through truth, forgiveness, and acknowledgement, and grace and inner freedom. There are also reflected in today's feature called the 4 forces, when I mentioned earlier about truth, acknowledgement, grace, and forgiveness. Truth gives us the courage to see clearly, right? Acknowledgement gives us healing. Again, acknowledgement gives healing a place to begin. And grace reminds us that none of us are beyond growth. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it can help release the burden we often continue to carry. We carry these stories in our nervous system, in our bodies, in our minds, in our hearts, and it shows up in ways that we would never think. So today, I invite you to sit quietly and ask yourself, what needs to be acknowledged within me? What truth have I been avoiding within me? What truth have I been, and what conversations have I been afraid to have with myself and others? What would become possible if I choose honesty over avoidance? Sometimes the greatest freedom doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from finally being seen, being heard, being acknowledged. I want to thank you for joining me today for another episode of Elephant in the Room. And until next time, I'll leave you with this biblical verse, scripture of John 8:32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I'm BolaniLe Patterson, founder of Women Healing Globally, creator of the 9 Dimensions of Health and Wellness, and founder of Balanced Cosmic Living. This episode is encouraged to inspire you to like, subscribe, and share with someone who you think may need to hear this message for today. And if not just for yourself, that's okay too. But until next time, continue the healing process, continue growing, and continue becoming the best version you were created to be. Who you coming to be? I'm coming to be me, the whole me, the healthy me, the grateful me, the loving me, the forgiving me, the joyful me, the woman I was always intended to be. And always remember, done is discipline, perfection is the polish later. If you're interested in public speaking engagement or a coaching session or my SEL 9 Dimensions of Health and Wellness curriculum, the link is in the bio. Until next time, may you continue to be well and prosperous. Ahala.